much nearby a mass grave site where these cartels are just dumping bodies. They have been dumping bodies, cartel violence, going after civilians, going after citizens, innocent individuals, and dumping them in these mass graves. They join us now from the border with just some heartbreaking updates about what is actually happening there. Ryan and Oscar, can you hear us?
Yeah, Natalie Clayton, thank you for the invitation. The whole country of Mexico, it is a complete mass grave. 3 or 4 months ago, they were found in an extermination camp down in Guadalajara, Jalisco. This is after President Trump just came into office and started pressuring the Mexican government with the tariffs and also labeling the cartels as terrorists. The Mexican president was under pressure and it created an interior war in different states of the country. Why? Because just the border has completely shut down. The illegal crossings have been completely shut down, have come down into almost 95 to 99%. And the cartel has pivoted and trickled again into what they were before: trafficking of synthetic drugs, distribution of drugs in interior communities, and also the interior wars. More extermination camps have been found. One of them was categorized like the Auschwitz of Mexico. More than 200 shoes were found with clothing, and also clothing of children with shrines dedicated to the Santa Muerte, that this is the Holy Death. Now, more mass graves have been found along the borderlines. Collective groups, that these collective groups are family members. The government of Mexico has been completely, and I want to say the word, completely incompetent to bring justice to the families and people, citizens that have been abducted and have been kidnapped by the cartel itself, and they have been distributing these bodies and creating mass graves all around, the border. The violence has been increasing. Interior violence has been increasing. And because of the pressure of the Trump administration and the current administration right now, the United States of America, Mexico now has dedicated themselves to a little bit to do their jobs. 758 laboratories dedicated to methamphetamine and fentanyl have been completely dismantled around the whole country, and more than 13,000 agitators and aggressors have been arrested in the country of Mexico. These aggressors were particularly, cartel members and distributors of fentanyl and methamphetamine. This is what they have been given. Also, a huge laboratory a month ago was just dismantled in the part of Zacatecas. More than 40 acres of property of this laboratory with more than 700 million doses of methamphetamine that they were seized on this laboratory. The mass graves are being completely found. Over here in Baja California, you have a collective group that is name is Todos Somos Eric Carrillo. Everybody's Eric Carrillo. This is a father that has dedicated himself to look for his son for more than 5 years. And on his journey, dedicated himself to find his son. Him alone has found more than 1,700 bodies near to the borderline. So this tells you the level of violence and the level of, of complete disaster that these organizations are. They need to be designated immediately. They're not terrorists. They're more than that. They're completely inhuman.
What are they fighting over? I want to ask that. I mean, they're not able to get through the border. So what is the fight about?
Well, let me just show you while we try to get this audio worked out here with them. I don't know if they're able to hear us or not, but I want to show you some images here. And Philip, maybe you can run this. So along the border right there, you're seeing these mass, this is a wall here. This is on the other side of the border. This is the Mexican side of the border here. And these are all of the family members, the missing. These are all individuals who are, very much likely all on these mass graves all around through Tijuana. 1,700 bodies piled up in these mass graves right along the border here. Journalists being targeted and killed for reporting this. And of course, now because the border is shut down, you have these, these cartels going toe to toe with one another. And they are fighting over territory. And instead of handing over money, as Ryan was telling me earlier, they're handing over 6 square blocks. Like, you now get control of these 6 square blocks. Ryan, Oscar, are you guys able to hear us now? I think they are able to hear us here.
Yep.
So Natalie was just asking, now that the border is shut down, what are they fighting over? And I tried to summarize a little bit of here what I think you told me earlier, but what exactly are they fighting over?
It's the interior war. They're going back to their normal operations. It is the distribution of narcotics, and also who it is the one that is going to lead the operation in several borders in several different states. The president of Mexico distributed and also extradited more than 27 leaders and kingpins to the United States of America.
Hey, everyone. Well, a lot of things happened. 2 days I wasn't online, but so many things happened. Since last week, you have a huge, gigantic war that's been kicking off over in Mexico that's not being reported by the mainstream news, but thousands of people are killed. The cartels are killing each other. The military is inside a silent war, and the intelligence is fighting over in Mexico. Now, I had told you last year that a lot of military training was going on from Colorado, where the United States military is training, working with a lot of people from Mexico, and they took the line all the way from Colorado all the way back down. They took it into underground tunnels that go into Mexico. So the soldiers that were trained, they took them back down to Mexico. And as you know now, there's a lot of underground lines, a lot of operations, underground cities. You know, it was a conspiracy, but now a lot of people are talking about this inside mainstream news. There's a couple of people out there who are really exposing this direct from the government, underground cities, underground tunnels. Even Elon Musk is talking about, you know, the underground tunnels that's underneath Las Vegas that I was talking about before anyone, of how Mohammed bin Salman, he had come through those tunnels, and how Trump saved him once he got to the top of Las Vegas and the shooting happened. Then there was another firefight on top of the hotels with CIA and with the White Hats. There was a firefight, a battle that happened. Anyways, that's a different story that we've been talking about. People are now finally sharing that this year. But getting back to these operations in Mexico, the training, what I told you happened last year, all of these military commanders, a lot of people from Mexico, just regular people, were trained inside the United States, these operations, but there was training also on the southern border of Mexico and the countries down below. They had a bunch of training. Now those operations have already went into operations. And what's happening really is the United States military, the United States is already running a few operations down in Mexico, and they're working with the Mexican military. And these are operations, and this is all connected to also Operation Avalanche that's happened. The pedophile rings that are going to be exposed throughout Mexico, throughout Canada. The military is actually running some of these operations, giving the intelligence, you know, to the FBI, giving the intelligence reports to a lot of these countries inside of Mexico, inside of Canada. Now we know that the Army, the 10th Division infantry unit is along the border of Arizona, New Mexico, and there are a few units inside of Mexico. Because you also have the striker brigades that are along the border of Mexico. And then you have all these different warships that's inside the Gulf of America. And then you have the White Hats, the CIA, that are running operations inside of Mexico. And they're helping the White Hats military. So you have all this huge, gigantic divisions from the military, secret operations, CIA, and then you have paramilitary troops from the United States, but then you also have the real military troops from the United States working with Mexico. Now there's over 18,000 arrests that's happening, that just happened recently. But there's a war that's kicking off hardcore in Mexico. This is something I was warning about 2 years ago. You know, in Mexico, what was going to happen. I was saying, watch Mexico, watch the border. This is very important. But sometimes I gave the information too early, and everybody was waiting for something to happen immediately. But this is this moment now that's critical. You have all the cartels attacking each other. You have the military, the United States military, working inside of Mexico with the military, and they're destroying a lot of places. These fentanyl factories, they're destroying a lot of these places where these operations were run. Then they're also retrieving a lot of weapons that came from Afghanistan into Mexico. So there's huge, massive panic inside of Mexico as these cartel wars are kicking off, as the military behind the scenes are going after these cartels in different places. Now there's huge, massive panic. That's why Chapo's family, his leaders, you know, they surrendered to the United States authorities and they were transferred into the United States because they made a deal. They're going to tell where the money came from the United States, from the Democratic parties, from the United States banks, from the rhinos, from the intelligence agencies of the United States, the CIA. So Chapo's family made a deal, and they have all the proof to show how their operations is being run. At the same time, Mexico, the military, has brought over a lot of people already inside the United States. So they're in protective custody right now. Then at the same time, the Mexican government is also telling you that they extradited 18 people, top heads of cartels into the United States. All of these operations are happening, but MSM is not reporting it. Mainstream media isn't talking about it. And then the Democratic Party isn't talking about it. There's a huge struggle for power. There's a huge struggle to hide what's happening inside of Mexico, because like we've been telling you, this is all connected to the CIA. It's connected over to the operations of the Globalists. It's connected over to the Carnegie Endowment. It's connected over to Bill Gates. It's connected over to Epstein, who is controlling the GDP inside of Mexico with operations. Now Trump is bringing down all of these different operations, including the weapons that was going into Mexico. So a lot of these weapons, that were being transferred into Mexico is connected to Obama. That brings us to our next story, what's happening with Obama. Trump gave you the comms. Trump gave you a huge, massive drop of the arrests that are coming. When he said all roads lead to Obama, he's talking about Russiagate, the collusion of what had happened, with Russiagate, with Pizzagate, with Seth Rich, everything. This military coup that went against Trump, Trump is bringing this forward now. Now you're seeing it for the first time that Trump put it out in public. All roads lead to Obama. Those are time-stamped of what he gave you, those comms. At the same time, what's going on with Obama is the James Comey story of how James Comey was threatening, Trump to be assassinated. So that 8647, you keep hearing this out there, 8647. It's a kill code, 86. Yeah, people use it, to take someone out. But in the military codes of, across the world, when you 86 someone, they're taken out. Whether in the mafia, they're taken out. And you're hearing all about these codes now. But James Comey knows what's really behind the story. The ex-FBI head, James Comey, who was placed by Obama, the time that he placed that, that was actually 8,647 days since 9/11 happened. So he was giving comms at the same time to the deep state to initiate a 9/11 style event, something that's huge and massive that could kick off. So these are comms by the deep state, but you have to think logical. You have to think really logical because, James Comey says he doesn't know what 86 means. He didn't know about this, that it was a threat. But last week on Thursday, the FBI went to go visit him. And then on Friday, the Secret Service went to go visit him. And then they end up bringing him in. So he was questioned. A lot of things happened with James Comey. That's going to be coming out in the next 2 weeks. But we got to get back to James Comey because you have people that are credible from special forces, including Michael Jaco. He's telling you that James Comey was already killed a long time ago. You're seeing a lot of these people, a lot of these operations where you have a fake Biden. You have some of these people that are fake because they have masses, they have doubles that are playing these parts that they're made to play. So we're going back to James Comey. You have a lot of credible people saying that's not really James Comey. He hasn't been seen in a long time. I myself, I know a lot of people But nobody's talking about that. The only thing that matters that they say is whether it's the real James Comey or the fake James Comey, he's being made to play a part. The reason why that this is important is, why would James Comey post this, post this on social media to assassinate, number 47? Why would he need to post that? Who is he trying to get to do this job? Is it just somebody in the streets or a citizen that's angry? No, that's not how it would work. The real truth is James Comey is plugged into Obama, the CIA. They have the real operations, and they would never give the real comms. They would never give the real drop that it's time to do this, because they have all the legitimate ways to run these operations with people who are on the dark side, different mercenaries, a lot of people inside the CIA. They have operations that they could plug, that they can do if they really want to try the, 8647, and there would be no need to post it on social media. So that brings us back to James Comey. Why would he do this? Why would he put it on the internet? He knows what it is. The FBI knows these codes, what an 86 is, especially talking inside of like intelligence, what that means. That means to kill somebody. So why would James Comey put this out in public? Well, those are operations by white hats. Whatever happened, whether James Comey is really dead, whether somebody is playing a part for him, they're being forced to play these games. They're being forced to make these moves in public. They're being forced to force investigations into James Comey. There's already investigations that's already happening with James Comey into Russiagate. There's already investigations into huge corruption scandals into James Comey. This 8647 is just a small little piece of the pie that's going to ignite a firestorm. Then it's going to connect to other deep state operations of how they were planning to assassinate number 47 from Pennsylvania over to Mar-a-Lago. There's 8 other assassination attempts that people don't know about. So all of this is going to collude in the future of what Trump is building, the story of how the military behind Trump is building a story for the public to see. So these things with James Comey is he's being forced to play a part. He's being forced by the white hats to play a part. So this also connects all the way back to Tom Holman, who's investigating a lot of these different people from the blue states. And I had already given you the drops that AOC Cortez is already being investigated. There's investigations going on to the blue state leaders. There's investigations going on to Cortez. There's investigations going on already to James Comey. There's investigations that are secretly already happening over to Obama. These are the comms, these are the drops that General Flynn had given you, that there could be, secret indictments happening with the grand jury that's already done this in DC. He gave you those comms already. And I was already telling you before Flynn was talking about this, these are already happening. There's indictments, there's silent tribunals that's happening. There was already tribunals, down in the Virgin Islands when a lot of people from Sergey Brin to some of the richest people, elite people in the world, they all had to come to the Virgin Islands. And near the Virgin Islands, on the other side of the islands, there was also military tribunals happening. And what they were doing was they were getting all the evidence. People were coming in to make all their statements. There's a lot of tribunals that's happening. And that's why Dan Bongino just told you just now that they have all the videos, the 10,000 videos of Epstein. Now, big, massive arrests are coming. And he's talking about these big arrests, and they're connected to the elites. So everything you've seen is growing. There's a bunch of operations happening from the stolen elections all the way down to Mexico, Trump is moving very, very, very quickly, and people are surprised. And this connects to his travel when he went across the world. Even though Trump was talking on MSN, mainstream media, saying that, that they're not going to interfere inside the Middle East, they're not going to interfere with all these different countries, what they're doing with whatever wars that's going on there. The United States isn't going to be the world police anymore. But secretly, I keep telling you, there's an alliance that's happening. With these alliance operations, the military in their countries are running operations to secure all the arrests, to create the storm operations, to let it unfold publicly. But at the same time, Trump went there to make deals. Trump went there to make huge, gigantic weapons deals, because inside of those contracts, there's a lot of things that can be null and void if they don't listen to the contracts. And that's connected to if they create wars, if they create terrorist attacks, if they decide to be working with certain operations from the CCP, that the weapons trade can be null and void and they can't get their money back. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. At the same time, Trump is telling them about the golden technology. He's telling them about the super advanced telecommunications technology that can stop the weapons around the world. So he's giving them a lot of warnings that Trump is in power. The United States military is a force to be reckoned with, because they control a lot of operations. That's including the new financial system that Trump is creating around the world. Trump is moving a financial system through tariffs. Trump is creating this huge, gigantic financial web, but he's stabilizing the world that they initiate their arrest wars. They initiate the arrests of corruption, the exposure of the corruption. Now, inside of these tariffs that he went to go visit all of these different countries, he's telling these people that there are certain corporations inside of China you can't work with if we're going to work together with tariffs. If we're going to make a deal, you can't be working with this banking system. You can't be working with these organizations. You can't be working with a lot of these projects inside of China. Even though China, they have caved to Trump, it's still kicking off because a lot of people lost their money. We're talking about trillions of dollars that was lost in China the past month alone through Trump's threats, through Trump's tariffs. But now Trump, he's released those tariffs, but there's a huge devastating effect that's happening. At the same time, when Trump went to these countries, behind the scenes, he's making a deal, but he's telling them, you cannot trade with these corporations, with these organizations, with these banking systems, with these people inside of China. So Trump is still shutting down the operations of the Rothschilds, the Orsini family, the globalist operations over in China. So this China is going to keep on collapsing. It's still happening, and they're still going to go into a coup. At the same time, you have Mexico that's inside this huge, gigantic, massive war where they're finding thousands of dead bodies everywhere. It's really, it's grotesque. They're finding people's heads chopped off all over the place.
We hear from people that say, Iran is the greatest threat to the United States of America. I mean, the images that you've sent me over the past couple of days is horrific. Let me just tell my audience, some of the videos and images that you've sent me, we cannot actually show here on the show because it is so horrible to look at. We're talking about beheadings, bodies piled up, crime scenes that you guys have gone to where there are bodies laid out with notes stapled to the dead bodies, videos of beheadings where one individual, the cartel, is literally using like a 4-inch pocket knife to cut off the head of a woman.
This is ISIS level stuff.
This is even worse than ISIS level stuff, right? I mean, so when someone says, Iran is the greatest threat to the United States of America right now, I mean, you're standing in, I think, which is arguably the most violent spot in the world right now.
Yeah, this is a war zone.
One last thing you have to remember, when Trump labeled cartels as a terrorist organization. When he labeled, these gangs like Tren de Aragua as terrorist gangs, this also includes ex-presidents. This includes the military. This includes government officials in different countries, like inside of Mexico, Middle America, with these terrorist organizations that was working with ex-presidents, that was working with government officials. The Mexican military that are white hats, they understand this. So there's huge panic as Trump wants to make an example out of Vicente Fox. And these are the comms that Trump really wants to go after him, because he was harboring all the money. He was doing so much stuff with human trafficking, the drug trade, working with CIA, working with all of these operations from the Carnegie Endowment Davos Group. And he's the one that helped initiate a lot of projects with Obama to bring in all the immigrants, the drug trade, and all of these different things. So these operations are really important, what Trump is doing. And that's why he labeled them a terrorist organization, because he can also go after the president. He can also go after these state officials, including the military. Another thing that's really important is when Trump went on this overseas trip for a visit, Trump was warning them about the next pandemic, not to initiate it. He was talking about the vaccines, and then also their operations and their cooperations with this USAID, and then the World Trade Organizations, and then the World Banks that they were working with, because they're the one who set off the pandemic. Trump gave a huge warning inside of these countries that he's going to start trading with, that they cannot initiate any more of these pandemics. Soon Trump is going to go into Europe and he's going to give the same warnings about them trying to initiate another pandemic, because that's what they want to do right now. They're beginning to push different viruses. They're really trying to push another pandemic, another lockdown. So when Musk and Trump went after USAID, when Trump pulled his money out, that he stopped working with the World Trade Organizations, Trump was actually stopping a lot of the pandemic. He was stopping the vaccines. He was stopping all of these illegal operations through USAID that was funding a lot of these operations through the world. You don't know it, but Trump and Musk actually stopped a big pandemic that they wanted to initiate. Now some countries are still trying to push this inside the US. Some people are still trying to push this. But Musk, Trump, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, a lot of people from the Trump administration are going to start to expose the truth of the pandemic. The real story of the vaccines is already inside of Congress, the Senate. But Trump is worried about Europe, that they want to initiate another pandemic, because they're still deeply controlled by the deep state, the European money that's there. So Trump is sending comms, communications with them to stop. But Trump is planning to make a visit over to Europe to stop a lot of these operations and have direct discussions, because what Trump is really going to do when he gets to Europe, he's traveling with the military. He's traveling with certain very important computers that the military is carrying, and they're going to relay all the information of what's on Epstein, all the people in their countries, the elites that are part of this, the banking system. Trump is getting ready to go to Europe. He wants to make this plan to let everybody know they need to initiate their storm operations. They have to show, the corruption in their countries, because if they don't, these world leaders from France to Germany, all the way to the UK, they're all in trouble through their banking systems, through the corruptions, their intelligence, everything that they're hiding inside the classified reports of the pandemic. Trump has it. The pedophile operation, Trump has it. The blackmail operation, Trump has it. So Trump is getting ready to go there and to warn them not to initiate another pandemic. So you're watching a lot of stuff that you didn't even know was really going on, that Musk and Trump stopping USAID. They actually stopped a pandemic that nobody even knows was ready to be initiated. Now, here's another calm that is confirmed. 2 years ago, I gave you the calms that Biden was going to pass away in 2 years. Now we're coming to the end of that 2 years. Now you see that Biden has cancer. They're preparing to say that, he died from prostate cancer. He died from cancer. So they're preparing the world that he's sick and they're trying to get rid of him. But I had given the calms that they're going to get rid of him, that they are going to expose that he did die. But the real truth was, I told you that he was killed after the Trump assassination as military operations went into Five Finger Lakes. When they went to Five Finger Lakes on the underground bases, they killed a lot of people. That's why Trump played that song, Nassim Dam, after he almost got assassinated, all those operations that happened. The week later, when he played that song, those were calms about fight, 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 but it was actually a revenge song. So when Biden got killed, and then a few days later, he ended up over in Las Vegas. He came on the underground tunnels, and then they took him over to the hospital. And then a lot of police comms said that he was sick or he died. These are on the police communication scanners. And then after that, he showed up another week after that. When he showed up, then he was instantly tall. He was really, really tall, like a foot taller. That's where Joe Rogan was talking about. That's where all the videos were made. And everybody was surprised how tall Joe Biden was. And that was his first public appearance. We're talking about these very confusing operations. The reason why the public doesn't know about it is because they're military operations. There's only certain people who know about these operations, but the information is there if you can find it. Everything is there if you can seek it, if you can look for it. The real operations are out there, but at the same time, 99% of the world doesn't know that there's military operations taking place. The deep state know it, but the deep state is totally confused right now, especially now that Trump is going after Obama, because Obama is the one who was using the auto pin. Out of all those signatures that Biden signed through his administration, almost 99% of them, it was by auto pin, and he never signed them. Now, the FBI, working with Kash Patel, and now with National Intelligence, they're going to uncover and they're going to bring forward that Obama, with a couple of people, I think it's like 4 or 5 people, there was a council that he was working with, and that includes Pelosi, and they were the one who were signing all of these executive orders. So Obama was just 1.5 miles from the White House, when Biden was in office. And he was using the auto pin to sign all of the executive orders. And he was the one who was creating all of these executive orders. That's why Trump is telling you all roads lead to Biden. Now that's the first time that Trump is really going after Obama for the first time in public. But the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it inside of the Democratic people, and then conservatives that are the rhinos. Nobody wants to talk about this, of what Trump posted. He posted this on his personal page, Trump, about Obama. Then recently, from the old Q operations, Trump put that video up where, the Hillary kill list, where Hillary killed a lot of people. All of these operations are unfolding right before you. It's very exciting to watch what's really happening. But you got to be vigilant. You have to have faith. Don't get scared when all of these different events kick off. Inside of Europe, everybody's in panic, especially you go to Germany, because they're scared. On the news, they're talking about Russia attacking. They're talking about war with Russia. But what's really happening is Trump and Putin just spoke. They spoke for 2 hours. And some of the things that they spoke about, this is from the wires. Putin wants that land. That's one thing. Another thing is he wants Europe and the United States to stop giving weapons to Ukraine, because that's what's going to prolong it. Even after there's a ceasefire, then Ukraine gets weapons in that time again. They get to take a break, get more soldiers, and then they get more weapons in that time. And Putin doesn't want that. That's why he doesn't really want a ceasefire. So he wants the land, and then he also wants Europe, the United States, to stop giving weapons. Then the third thing that Putin wants to do is he wants to stop, this denazification. He wants to stop all the Nazi operations that's over in the west of Ukraine with the banderas, all of these operations that go back to how the CIA took over Ukraine. They created all of these operations, but these are older operations than that was created by the Third Reich. So Putin wants to end that. Now, if Zelensky doesn't comply, if it doesn't happen, Putin's going to take Kyiv, and Putin wants to take Odessa, and he's going to cross the river. So this is going to happen. And when he does cross that river, now he can get all the intelligence, he can get all the papers for Trump, and then all the people that can be arrested, that can really testify that Biden, Obama, the CIA operations, globalist operations, including Bill Gates, World Economic Forum, they were running Ukraine for these money laundering operations, including all the bio labs that was creating the viruses, the blackmail operations. So Trump was also talking to Putin with this, that this is what he wants from Ukraine. He wants all these people to testify. He wants all the evidence from from all the attorneys from Ukraine that was a part of these operations with Biden, and then what really happened with the Maidan coup in 2014. So that's what Trump wants, and that's what Trump is talking with Zelensky about. It's saying, I want these papers, I want all the proof, I want you to be a part of it, I want you to show the full corruption to the world of what was really happening behind the scenes, that the CIA, Biden, the deep state was all guiding you through these operations, including with all the labs underground. So that's what Putin wants. This is what Trump wants. And it's up to Zelensky to make a choice. So one way that it can go is Zelensky, he gives up, he removes himself from power, he gives the power to someone else, and then they give all the papers, the documents, the military, the government papers, all the corruption papers to Trump, and the land's given over to Russia, and then all the people are arrested over inside of West Ukraine, people with the banderas that are the Nazis that was pulling a lot of these operations of Zelensky controlling Ukraine. So it can either go that way, or else Russia's coming and they're going to take over Kyiv and Odessa, and then he can get all the papers, everything that Trump wants, including all the arrests. At the same time, Russia can also take out West Ukraine with all these Nazis that came from the Third Reich that was created a long time ago through the banderas. So there's only one and two ways that this is going to happen. So either Zelensky works with Trump, gives the papers, and then puts somebody else into power and leaves, or else Russia's going to take over Kyiv, Odessa, and then they're going to kill people and arrest the people over the Nazi people that are Nazified. That includes Zelensky. And eventually, if that happens, the different commanders inside of Ukraine are going to kill Zelensky. So those are the two ways. So a lot is happening when we're talking about the auto pin, who's controlling it. This was all predicted by the Q operations. That's why 17 was telling you, follow the pin. Now we know about all of this stuff that happened with treason that's happening with Obama, that was behind the scenes. That's why he was known as Renegade in the 17 operations, because he was a renegade against Donald Trump. He was a renegade against the military, but he was actually being controlled by the Bush administration, which is the CIA, the old OSS, the old deep state operations that control a lot of the unconstitutional deep state operations and their financial systems, the military industrial complex systems. So a lot of stuff is happening as the arrest wars are already kicking off in Mexico. 18,000 people arrested. A lot of people, cartels, have already been transferred into the United States. And at the same time, Dan Bongino is telling you a lot of arrests are going to happen now. And then Kash Patel just now gave more information that a lot of high-profile people are going to be arrested. So there's a lot of things that's kicking off with Trump talking with Putin. And they're giving Zelensky the idea of how these operations are going to go one or two ways. So a lot of things are happening. And Kash Patel is fulfilling a promise to shut down the FBI offices over in DC. But what's really connected to that are the underground tunnels through DC. Those underground tunnels were hosting some old bombs that the FBI, the military, that they found, that they knew that was there underneath DC. That's why Kash Patel was giving a warning to say that maybe everybody needs to leave DC. That's why Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were giving hints when they were giving an interview. There's a lot of stuff inside of that old FBI building where Mossad, the CIA, MI6 have video recordings in almost every room through the whole building of how they're blackmailing the FBI, everything that they were recording, they were watching, they were catching everything through satellites, and then under underground tunnels also. And there's human trafficking tunnels that was going to the FBI and then over to the White House. And this was going to different parts of DC to the elite housing, including over to Georgetown. Now, Georgetown is where the OSS was created, and that OSS later will become the CIA operations. That's where the Jesuits infiltrated, the people over in Georgetown at a high capacity to bring the blackmail operations, to create some of these first human trafficking operations projects, with the United States government. And I was telling you that going all the way back to the beginning of the FBI, of how it was created, it was actually to protect the elites, that their pedophile operations wouldn't be exposed. And they were protecting a lot of these elites, whether they were Republicans or Democrats. The FBI was just protecting them. They were moving information. They were protecting the pedophile rings. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Tomorrow, I'm going to be bringing another video, and then I'm going to be bringing a few videos this week that's really important. There's a lot of things that's going to be kicking off. It's massive. Okay, guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I have an important video to drop tomorrow.